So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of Main 2021. I'm going to give a brief introduction, some opening remarks, and then I'll let you discover the lightning talks that were showed yesterday, and we're going to show them again this morning briefly. But let me start first of all by some acknowledgements. I would like to first open this session by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional and unceded territory of the Kanyankihaka Mohawk, a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among nations. I'd like to welcome everybody from all the countries that you're coming from, and I'd like to also welcome all your different languages, and we are really happy to have you with us. Today we're looking forward to an exciting second day of Main 2021. There's going to be a lot of exciting talks and also 2 panels. The first panel will happen this morning at 11:30. It's centered on consciousness and representation in brains and machines. And we have another exciting panel this afternoon that's happening at 4:30 Montreal time. It's entitled Inspiring the Future, Activism, Advocacy and Allyship in Neuro AI. And we look forward to seeing you all there too. As you know, if you've attended this meeting yesterday, we are happy to report we have over 2,300 attendees that have registered from over 70 countries across the globe, something we're very happy about. So please feel free, those of you who are already connected, to just say hi from wherever you are. Say hi from Oslo, or hi from Tunis, hi from Chicago, or hi from Moscow. We do have a code of conduct that is really important. I'd recommend that you check it out on our website and make sure that you are considerate, respectful, and collaborative in all exchanges and speaking and listening during this event and in using the chat. So, without any further delay, we're going to have about 16 to 17 minutes lightning talks that have been pre-recorded, that have been submitted to us and have been selected. So I hope you enjoy them, and then we will kick off our session on consciousness this morning. So I'll turn around to Pravish, and we can go ahead with the lightning talks. Thank you so much.
How do recurrent neural networks categorize objects? We know that they can outperform feed-forward neural networks in categorizing objects under certain circumstances. For example, in the presence of clutter. How do they do so? Natural images are a function of both the category of an object, for example, in this case, the digit 5, and other auxiliary variables, such as its location, its orientation, and its scale. In this case, the location would be to the left, for example. Therefore, it is possible for a recurrent neural network to extract the value of auxiliary variables, such as the location of the object, using feed-forward connections. So in this case, the network takes the image as input, and through the feed-forward pass, it infers possible values for the category and the location of the object. And then, given the most likely location of the object, it can use the feedback connections to condition subsequent inference at subsequent time steps on that value. For example, what is the most likely value of category, given that the most likely location is on the left? This way, the network is able to sharpen the evidence for a given category. So, do recurrent neural networks learn such a strategy? We find that they extract information about auxiliary variables increasingly with time step at all layers. And they use this information to filter the input and select the relevant object, getting rid of the clutter around the target object. For any more details, please have a look at our paper and feel free to contact us.
This video will introduce an approach called developmental embodied neurosimulation. This approach was developed at the Orthogonal Research and Education Lab There's our website. And it was developed by about 10 co-authors at various levels of contribution. So we start off with something called developmental Braitenberg vehicles, which takes the Braitenberg vehicle and it turns it into a developmental system where the body and the brain are developed in tandem. And so you can see here that you have an adult Braitenberg vehicle laying an egg. It differentiates into a new adult, and you can modify that developmental process in different ways. The next approach that we use is Gibsonian information. And this is another preprint from the Sci Archive. And you can see that we think we characterize information as an external distribution of different states that's encoded into an internal communication channel, which roughly corresponds to an internal model and an agent, and then is decoded into behavior. We also turn to continual embodied learning, which is an approach where we probe this developmental Braitenberg vehicle a little bit more, and we explicitly introduce the concept of a genomic encoding, which serves as an innate mechanism for specifying different parts of the nervous system. So here you can see that we specify different cells, their birth times, and even maybe their death times as well, so that we have this nervous system that's changing in development and then ends up giving you an adult nervous system that's been developed. We also turn to something called metabrains, which is another preprint from the archive. This is something that involves layering different types of representation, different levels of representation, so that you can have a neurosymbolic type system, but something that interacts and you can turn different layers on and off as you need to. Finally, we have this approach of inheritance and learning. So this is where we partition the genetic and cultural components of inheritance and learning. Thank you for your time.
Perception arises from comparing sensory signals to expectations or contextual priors. Under ambiguity, perception relies more strongly on priors. In the brain, the neocortex is thought to implement such perceptual mechanisms and is essential in learning a model of the external world. The neocortex is composed of a hierarchy of regions and is thought to perform sensory inference by combining two complementary information streams. First, a feed-forward stream propagating bottom-up in a hierarchy, representing sensory information, and second, a feedback stream propagating top-down, representing expectations or priors, which originate from higher-order associative regions. Within a cortical region, pyramidal neurons in layer 2 and 3 are a key cellular component of the feed-forward pathway. They integrate these two streams of information at their basal and apical dendrites, respectively. How they combine these two streams to update feed-forward representations based on contextual priors is unknown. Here, we propose a functional model of integration of these two streams at basal and apical compartments based on known physiological principles. We developed an ambiguous MNIST dataset that implements parameterized ambiguity between digits using a conditional variational autoencoder. We then train the feedback projection onto apical dendrites in our model to complement the sensory representation at the basal dendrites and resolve ambiguity. We find that the proposed model is able to learn a feedback projection that updates the sensory representation. Specifically, when input stimuli are ambiguous, contextual priors arriving at the apical dendrites are integrated in the sensory representation to rescue classification performance. Importantly, when stimuli are unambiguous, contextual priors, which oppose sensory evidence, are appropriately ignored. Our proposed model allows analysis of candidate local learning rules. It provides insights into how pyramidal neurons could integrate sensory and contextual information to learn predictive models of the world.
Hi, welcome all of you. Let us start with a question that is central to many fields like finance, artificial intelligence, and biosystems. That is, how do agents operate optimally in a given environment? What can be a general theory for this question and for emergence of intelligence in general? Presenting to you active inference, a biologically plausible process theory that emerged in neuroscience as a general theory of behavior. And to introduce, active inference brings together three problems, namely perception, decision-making, and learning, under a single model and one single objective or cost function of minimizing free energy. However, computational implementations are restricted to low-dimensional settings owing to the complexities in the process theory. Here, in our work, we propose a modified planning algorithm similar to dynamic programming, and we recursively evaluate the expected free energy backwards in time. The benefits are, now we are capable of dealing with higher time horizon problems, and now planning can be done even with uncomplicated target prior preferences. To demonstrate the benefits of our work, we do simulations in the classic windy grid world task, where the agent is supposed to navigate from a predefined start state to a predefined goal state as optimally as possible. We add several complexities on the way, and our results demonstrate the advantage of using active inference instead of classical reinforcement learning algorithms like DynaQ and Q-learning. This work is an extension of our preprint that is available online, and the current manuscript is under preparation. Thank you so much for listening.
Hi, I am Vishwa, a postdoc in the lab of Xiaojing Wang at NYU. Our work centers on studying the neural correlates of learning to learn, wherein learning a series of related problems produces a substantial acceleration in learning and has been reported in several primate species. Psychology literature attributes this ability to the formation of and reliance on schema. Schemas are mental abstractions of commonalities across shared experiences, and the reuse of this mental representation to interpret new problems that share structure with previously learned problems can speed up learning. But what are its neural correlates? Our modeling work to address this question is available as a manuscript on bioRxiv and can be accessed via the QR code on the top right. To answer the question, we trained a recurrent neural network model on a series of sensory motor association problems without any explicit meta-learning objective. Yet, we observed an exponential speedup in learning across problems. Upon analyzing the network's population responses, we found the neural correlates of the task schema within a low-dimensional subspace of population activity. Neural responses within this subspace represented the temporal and decision structure of the task that was shared by all problems. Moreover, they solely controlled responses of the output units. To test whether the reuse of this schematic subspace across problems played a causal role in the speedup in learning, we perturbed the output weights of the network to prevent the reuse of the schematic representations while a new problem was learned. This perturbation produced dramatic learning deficits. In addition, we developed a novel measure for the effect of changes in the network's connection weights on the changes in the population responses when a problem is learned. This measure is grounded in dynamical systems theory, and it revealed that reuse of the schematic representations in a new problem can undesirably alter them. Connection weight changes are largely meant to prevent such alterations. Finally, we found that the accumulation of such connection weight changes across problems has a beneficial effect on the schematic representations in that it improves their invariance to learning new problems. This further accelerates learning and underlies the learning to learn dynamics in the network. This work produces several experimental predictions that are currently under validation. For example, a monkey trained on a similar series of association problems also exhibits an exponential speedup in learning. To learn more, please refer to our manuscript via the QR code.
Hi everyone, so today I'm going to do a quick overview of our project in which we attempted to reconstruct mental representations of visual categories by linking the visual and semantic spaces. So going right into it, we first generated stimuli that were comprised of random high-level visual features. These features were taken from an intermediate layer from a CNN. And so to generate these stimuli, we iteratively optimized noise images. And we did this many times to obtain 10,000 different stimuli. As you can see on the right, these stimuli don't comprise any clear objects, but they comprise complex textures and object parts. Then we showed these stimuli to 100 online subjects, and the subjects had to tell us what they saw in them. Then we transformed the labels that they gave us into semantic vectors using a pre-trained word embedding. These vectors summarize the semantic content of the stimulus as perceived by the observer. Then we inferred a mapping between the space of visual features and the space of semantic features. So we related the visual features of all the stimuli to the semantic features of all the responses to these stimuli. This gets us a visual semantic mapping. Then we can feed any label that was named or not during the experiment to the word embedding to get the semantic features associated to this label, then feed those semantic features through our visual semantic mapping to get the visual features associated to this concept, and then we can reconstruct the prototypical representation by iteratively optimizing an image through the DNN that will correspond to those visual features. We successfully reconstructed hundreds of different concepts this way. These are just a few examples. A preprint with many additional results will follow soon. Otherwise, you can contact me here in the meantime. Thank you.
HNN stands for Human Neocortical Neurosolver. It is a software to test circuit-level hypotheses from non-invasive MEG and EEG data. The goal of HNN is to bridge scales of understanding by going from macro-scale signals to micro-scale cellular modeling. First, let us consider the macro-scale signal. In non-invasive electrophysiology, like MEG and EEG, we are measuring signals from anywhere between 50 to 300 sensors, and these signals are mapped to source locations in the cortex using an inverse model that yields source estimates. Source estimation helps separate signal contributions from different brain areas and estimates the waveforms at each location. While this is already very useful to interpret the data, we asked if it was possible to go further and test circuit-level hypotheses from non-invasive MEG and EEG signals. To do so, we first developed a biophysically detailed circuit model that is based on our best understanding of the ERP literature. It's a network with populations of pyramidal and basket neurons in two layers that are driven by exogenous layer-specific action potentials. The intracellular currents generated in the long apical dendrites of the pyramidal cells in our model generate the current dipole and can be compared to the estimated source time course. Finally, to use this model for analyzing large data sets, it is necessary to optimize the circuit parameters automatically. We do this by using gradient-free optimization that minimizes the root mean square difference between the simulated microscale waveforms and the source time course. This is the microscale interpretation. HNN is distributed both as a graphical user interface and also as a Python library called HNN Core. The links to the software package documentation are shared below, and a big thank you to our collaborators across the world and funding sources.